Hi Ross, my name's
Hi,
Matt.
Matt.
I graduated from Plymouth University in 2017 now. Um, I then went on um, to find a full-time job, and I got a position in London, although it was pretty difficult to find one straight out of university, but
Yeah,
managed to get there in the end. I
nice one.
first started as a marketing executive for a company called BSI, the British Standards Institution. Um, they effectively make standards. It wasn't very interesting. I knew that it wasn't going to be a long-term thing, but it was just something to get foot in the door, build up some experience, and I
Nice.
can't stress how um, important that is. Leaving university, any experience is good experience, and I think from where I moved on from that is the demonstration that it doesn't really matter like what job you go into at university because you can chop and change in your early career so much. So from there, I started as a marketing executive. I was there for about 18 months. Um, and then I moved into the finance sector. So I now work for a company called Growth Street, who specialize in SME finance, which is quite a hot topic at the moment, given a lot of businesses are struggling.
Sure.
Um, and I moved into more of a data role. So my job title is a marketing analyst.
Yeah.
And I focus quite a lot on like analytical side of marketing, performance metrics, and a few other things. So it's quite an interesting niche of marketing,
Yeah.
but something I'm really enjoying.
Yeah. How are you finding that? Because I did I found myself kind of in the performance marketing type area when I was doing my internship. I did kind of like that kind of metrics and stuff like that. Do you enjoy it? And how's it going?
Great question. I really enjoy it, and I kind of stumbled upon it. Um, I think when I got into my first role at BSI, it was kind of this generalist marketing role, and I would do a bit of everything. I'd do a bit of content, I'd do a bit of social media, I'd do a bit of email. Like it would be
Yeah.
very much a creative role. And one thing I got really interested in was Google Analytics and
Yeah.
kind of just seeing how things were performing.
Sure.
Um, and I had from there quite a lot of experience in managing the back end our Google Analytics kind of makeup, and I would like play
Yeah.
around with that. And then I actually got recruited to work at Grove Street, and from then on, I focused on building out Google Analytics and um, doing a lot of the back end stuff.
Yeah.
And what I like about it is weirdly, I studied marketing, but I wouldn't say I'm a creative marketer.
Yeah.
And I really kind of took that on board, but I kind of really valued being able to support a marketing team from like the data side of things. So
Yeah.
after looking at some of the stuff, I can make recommendations, and it's a really pivotal side of marketing, which is often overlooked, but it's kind of really growing in popularity. And I would say that there are quite a lot of jobs in that space at the moment, and it's a really interesting place to be working.
Yeah, I can actually I can relate to that a lot actually. When you were talking about how you weren't necessarily you didn't feel you're a creative marketer, but you really liked kind of the back end and performance side of it. And I find with that kind of role, you can look in, you have so much more insight and you can look
Yeah,
at trends and things like that. That's really cool. It's really cool.
yeah.
So so what's it like working for or marketing in the financial services sector as a whole? Because I'm sure there's lots of people that are interested in that sector but don't know what it's
Yeah,
like.
yeah. So it's an interesting one because it's a heavily regulated sector. So as a creative marketer, it's a little bit more challenging because anything that you do from like an outreach perspective has to go through like an internal regulatory compliance check first. So I would say it's slightly more reactive rather than proactive in terms of what you can do and like the levers you can pull to influence things, but it's rewarding. It's a good place to be in. And there's a huge sector at the moment from fintech companies rather than just traditional banks, which are really exciting prospects as well. So yeah, it's good to be a part of. It's really, really interesting. And it's going well.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm certainly interested in like performance. I think that will be the route I take, is into kind of performance marketing, and we'll
Yeah,
see what
I can give you, so there's a few things if you wanted to kind of look into that.
Yeah.
Kind of the few skills that are required at the moment is good knowledge of Google Analytics.
Sure.
Being able to spot trends, seeing how things are changing, and building funnels and things like that. You can learn all this online. There's a few certificates that Google Analytics provide for free, so they're pretty good to get started. Also,
no, I was going to say, sorry. I think I'm in quite a good state to go into that kind of thing, because on my internship, I managed to get a hold of. I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, right, and I got a hold of their Google Analytics and a hold of. I don't know if you've used Adobe Analytics as well.
I've come across it, I've not used it.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. It's pretty good. I don't know. I think it's personal preference.
Yeah, but they're all the same. Like all those skills,
exactly.
They're good to have. And also, if you could, I don't know if you've looked into it, but have you heard of SQL before?
I've heard of it, and it's in so many job descriptions, and I haven't yet trained up on it, but I know that it's really valuable.
Yeah, so it's classed as a coding language, but it's not necessarily as technical as a coding language
or something.
Yeah, it's being able to read. It's a more more comprehensive Excel, basically.
Okay.
And you can read and write tables and pull different stats, and that's a good one to have as well if you wanted to go down the data analyst side of things. And it's quite easy to pick up. So definitely recommend having a look into that.
Yeah, I would definitely. I was trying to watch like an hour-long video on SQL at one point because I saw it in so many job descriptions, but I haven't properly trained myself yet. But I definitely want to get into it. So cool, nice. Cool. So how's the coronavirus affected your? Obviously, it's been massive in your industry, with being SMEs and things like that, I guess, and I guess as a marketer, you're working from home. Has there been like anything specific in your industry? Like, I guess, a lot of SMEs have been massively affected by it. And I guess then as an investment business in SMEs, that's naturally had a knock-on effect.
Yeah, so it's been a pretty crazy year, I would say. We, as a company, decided to do some operational changes and some business strategy changes, probably at the wrong time. And that was in the end of last year. And we started to focus on more of a digital sales focus rather than like a traditional sales team where you have BDMs in the field. We had quite a few that was quite expensive to run, and we wanted to change so we were more agile and we can bring the costs of our business down. We scaled back quite a big proportion of our business, and as we were starting to revamp up some of the sales process, coronavirus hit, and it's just changed the business lending landscape completely. We are not a CBILS lender, so you might have seen the coronavirus business loan scheme. And the bounce back loan scheme. So we're not accredited to loan out to those businesses yet. We might be soon, but we're not yet. And obviously businesses are massively wanting to go down those schemes.
For sure.
So we've seen quite a lot of change, but we're hopeful that we can and try and support businesses in the near future. But things have changed completely. As a marketer's job, you know, it's not about getting businesses on board anymore. It's just making sure that the ones we do have, you know, are doing okay, and
Yeah,
surviving through
just
this really troubled time. So yeah, it's interesting.
maintaining. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that it certainly sounds tough, and I guess a lot of SMEs are suffering because of it. But I guess as long as you can kind of maintain that the business you've got at the moment, then yeah, hopefully you'll recover and, you know, start to build
Yeah,
up. It seems like this situation is kind of, you know, plateauing, and yeah.
yeah.
So
There's some normality returning to kind of our market.
sure,
We don't know the full scale of the trouble just yet. I think we will know in, you know, 2 to 3 months potentially.
sure.
Um, and we're quite an interesting business. So we have one side of our business which is we lend obviously money, and it works
Yeah.
like an overdraft facility. Um,
Okay.
and then the other side of our business is peer-to-peer, so peer-to-peer investment. So for us to
Mm,
enable to loan to businesses, we need investors to invest with us.
sure.
And so we've always had this like balancing act of bringing on enough investors for spare liquidity to then invest into businesses.
Yeah.
And when the coronavirus hit, obviously there was a run from investors,
Yeah.
and we saw that liquidity pool drop.
Yeah.
So ever since then, we've been trying to kind of manage the situation. It's been pretty tough, but
Yeah.
especially in more investment markets, we've seen some normality kind of returning.
Mm,
Uh,
good news.
and yeah, we're kind of just like working through that process at the moment.
Cool. Okay. Well, that's good news. At least some of those areas are kind of plateauing, and it seems like we're almost out of the woods. I was
Yeah,
going to ask as well, since you've kind of you've got yourself into financial services, which is I could imagine it's quite a tough industry to get into in terms of I can imagine it's quite competitive, and the recruitment process is probably a bit more stringent because of the regulation and things like that. How did you find the whole process of getting into that industry in terms of the actual recruitment process and everything like that?
yeah, sure. Um, so for me, it was actually quite easy
Oh
because
yeah,
I use a recruiter, um, and I advocate for recruiters. They do a lot of the heavy lifting for you,
sure.
especially after you've been in a role
Mm,
for a period of time. You've kind of established yourself a little bit. You've built up some basic skills. Then you can start to use recruiters to do a lot of heavy lifting for you.
mm,
And if it's something that you wanted to get into, if other people watching this want to get into, it's there's a lot of kind of fintech companies I've already mentioned, but startup businesses as well that are looking for fresh talent that you can kind of get into at early stages. And they rely heavily on recruitment companies to do a lot of the recruitment for them as well. So with me, it was actually quite a quick turnaround. Actually, I had been contacted by a recruiter on like a Tuesday. Um,
yeah.
I had a telephone interview on the Wednesday. I had a face-to-face interview on the Thursday, and then I had a job offer by the end of the week. So
Wow.
it was really crazy how quickly it happened.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's the same for everybody, but sometimes you just got to be in the right place at the right time, and you just get a break like that, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
That sounds about right. That sounds
yeah.
about right.
But I mean, when I was getting my first job, now that was a challenge.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so I mean, it swings and roundabouts, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, in terms of your skills in performance marketing and marketing in general, did you find that, for example, in the role, in the position now, um, did you have to do much training? Was all of the training that you have now kind of supplied by the businesses that you work for, or did you kind of go outside of hours and be training yourself on on SQL and things like that and Google
Yeah.
Analytics?
So it was mostly to get into the position now is mostly from my past experience. I dived straight into more of the technical side of things. We use well, we did use at my first company Salesforce. You must have heard of that. Pardot, which
Yeah.
is an email client. Google
Okay.
Analytics, obviously. So
Yeah.
it was those skills that I got really familiar with, and
Sure.
I knew quite well, and I was able to do some growth marketing aspects to kind of increase lead flow, etc. So it was those sorts of things that I had built up in my first experience that I was then able to carry over. In terms of like external training, I did a bit of Google Analytics stuff out of own sheer curiosity, but it wasn't at the scale where I was studying or
Yeah.
revising for a certificate exam or something like that. So
Yeah.
it was quite low key, but definitely experience. Experience goes a long way, really.
Sure. Yeah. That sounds like good advice, really. Where do you see yourself in the future? I guess, Matt. Like, this is not an interview for the next position in the marketing society, but
I've come across this question so many times, but I do not. I never know the answer.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I think I no doubt my career ambitions will change in 18 months, 2 years. But when I started marketing, I was thinking of getting out of the field altogether. I wasn't really enjoying the generalist marketing sense, and it wasn't until I got into this job now where I focused on a niche that I've identified is high in demand in terms of employability, but also you know as an analyst, the potential earning potential as well is a little bit higher than your generalist marketing role. So I think I've identified, like, in terms of my career ambitions, the next stage would be to get to an operations and marketing operations level, and then keep going. But I'm really happy with the sector that I'm in and the company that I'm at. It's a really good culture, some really great people. We don't have to wear suits in the office when we were in the office.
Ideal.
It's very relaxed, and you get that with a lot of fintech companies. It's kind of I read an article actually that now we're all working from home, sales of suits have absolutely plummeted. It's probably going to be what's going to happen when we go back. We don't need to wear a suit.
That's so true, right? I was talking to a guy I know yesterday, and he was talking about, like, how a lot of companies will probably be changing to working from home as a fairly normal aspect of
absolutely.
So
in terms of like career ambitions, I like to keep it open, but I've got a couple of ideas in terms of seniority, really.
No, that sounds really good. Well, your CV certainly looks pretty cool so far, so that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Matt. There's so much insight you've just provided, and I'm certainly interested in performance marketing, so that's especially valuable for me, at least. So
no problem.
Sure.
Best of luck with it.